3 meals a day for
Yes, with new
everyone in the
recipes.
house.
Yes, yes. And so good to be connected with everybody too. It's lovely to stay in touch with family, friends, church. There's a whole different world of opportunities that have opened up now technologically. And we're doing this, which is amazing. So many
Yes.
new things that have come. So yeah, it's good.
I'm
It's
really
good.
excited too because I think we were not valuing connecting through social media as well as we have started now
Right.
in this season.
Exactly,
Nice.
exactly. We underestimated the power of technology.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
we are hoping, I'm also praying that we'll get to meet soon and we'll be able to pray with our churches and worship with our churches
absolutely.
soon.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's just start with it, Chechi. The first thing I wanted to know from you was if you could, share something about yourself, about your family. Most of us have met your family. I believe even the ones who are watching, most of us know you. But for the ones who have never spoken to you, never known about you much, for them,
Sure,
maybe if you could share
sure.
something about your family, ministry,
Yeah, I
and
would
a
love
little
to.
bit about yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was born in the UAE. My parents were working there at the time. So I have two older brothers. I'm the baby in the family. And
Ah.
I did all my schooling there. And so big shout out to all the Ballus in UAE. Woohoo! Uh, and yeah, so as I was growing up, I grew up in a traditional, nominal Christian family. I used to go for mass every Friday, but never really had a relationship with the Lord. I used to do it out of routine because our family did it. I went along with them, did all the routines and all the, prayers that I had to do. And it was in 1997 that my mother, she was the first person in our family to give our heart to the Lord. And she came home one day from work because a friend had shared the gospel with us. She came home and she started to share it with us, with me and my brothers, my dad. And so slowly I started to put my faith in it, and I started to believe. And one evening in my bedroom, I just said a short prayer with my mom and her friend. They led me to the Lord. I received Jesus in my heart. And from then on, it has been a different story. I didn't have a radical change as such, but priorities in my life started to change. And I started to see things differently. But life didn't really get much better because my father was not pro this, he was very against it and he was very strict with us. And so I had limitations. He restricted me from going to a spirit filled church. So for a couple of years, I just didn't go anywhere. I didn't go either for mass or to another church. So I just sat at home, read the Bible daily, even though I didn't understand much. But that's all I could do. And after I finished my high school, I went to Kerala to do my higher studies. And as I was living in Cochin, I was living with my aunt, my mom's sister, and their family. So they were just opening their hearts to the Lord at that time. And perfect timing, what better timing for me to get there? And, I'm living with this family who is, giving their lives to the Lord. And now I had more freedom to go and worship and go to a spirit-filled church. So I started going with them, and that's where I started to grow spiritually in the Lord, and my life really changed. In 2001 I got baptized, and my life has been different from then on. And in 2003 my father got baptized as well, and that is the year that I got married, because there was a breakthrough. Something just broke in our family.
Yeah.
There was a bondage that just broke. Then my brother got married. I got married at the end of that year, because I had finished my graduation, and then I had gone to Pune to continue with my masters in business administration. So while I was there, there was a proposal that came, and that was from Binu. And so I had to discontinue my studies because I knew this was from God. That is another
Okay.
story altogether. So, if I say all the stories, we probably won't get to the end of this talk.
Yeah. Okay.
So then we got, yeah, and so then I discontinued my studies and I came back to Kerala, and Binu and I got married at the end of 2003 on Christmas Day. And we lived in
Mm-hmm.
Kerala for a year, and then after that, we moved to Kolhapur. We were there for a couple of years. We were in
Mm-hmm.
ministry there, and in 2007, we moved to Calcutta, and we've been
Mm-hmm.
here for the last 13 years. And we came here when my first daughter was 11 months old. We have three
Mm-hmm.
children now. She's a teenager, she's 14, and my middle child is 10 years old, and I have a
Mm-hmm.
son who's 4. So we have three kids at the house, all different stages in life. you know, um, Came to Calcutta with just 3 or 4 suitcases, and now we're pastoring a church. There's different areas of ministry that we're involved in, with reaching out to the communities through feeding and education programs, with the social initiatives that we started. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
just here and available to do whatever God wants us to do. So that's just in a nutshell about what I can say.
Yes. I just
Yeah.
wanted to, tell everyone watching it was such a big blessing to come across you and Pastor. The day we all were there and the way all of you took care of us, it was such a lively atmosphere, even at home, at your home. And it was
Yeah.
so good to fellowship with all of you. And I'm really looking forward to come back to Kolkata and again have more time with all of you.
Yeah, we
And
loved
I
it. We
just,
loved it. Yeah. We
yeah,
loved
it was
having
such a
all of
good
you
time.
guys. Yeah.
Yes.
We enjoyed
Yes,
it
and
too.
it's amazing how Kolkata is becoming more and more open to the work and move of the Holy Spirit. It's so
True.
good. I remember the first time I came to Kolkata compared to this time when I came, the experience was totally different. It was
That's
so
true.
beautiful. The atmosphere was
That
so
is true.
receptive.
Something has
So good.
shifted
So
in the
good.
atmosphere here, because even when we came back in 2007, when we came, people told us that you're going into the graveyard of missionaries. And we're like, okay, this is not really helping us. Here we are, we're excited to go and do the Lord's work. And people were discouraging us. They were telling us stories of how they were always falling sick. People came, but they
Yeah.
left. They just could not stay. But after all these years, we can really see something happening in this city. God is definitely bringing a revival into this nation, into this city, into this state, for
Yes,
sure.
absolutely, absolutely. And I also remember the first time we stepped in Kolkata because when I got married to Finney, one of the first things he told me, even before we married, was how God has placed Kolkata on his heart, that he has a vision for that city. And the first
Wow.
thing everybody was telling us, mostly when we were planning to come and do something in that city, was how hard it is, how difficult it is. But
Yeah.
I have seen God move even in the midst of everything, God moving in that
Amen.
city. So, yes, everybody
So
watch
good.
out because something powerful is going to come out from the city of Kolkata.
Yes.
Yes.
Amen.
So I wanted to know from you, Chechi, like being a pastor, how did you deal with I know it is not easy, I believe somewhere because I was very close to my pastor's family before I got married to Finney and we moved into another ministry. Before that, I was really close to my spiritual father and his family, and I've seen her journey, pastor's wife, our auntie, and it's not easy, because anytime people can come to visit you, you have to be
Yeah.
available, you have to be sacrificial, and so many times, you have to sacrifice your own family time to be available to the people that God gives you. So, as a pastor's wife, has there ever been a pressure on you to always, try to keep things together because so many people look up to you as a mom, as a wife, as a pastor? So, how do you deal with that pressure? I don't know if you've felt it. Maybe you must have, maybe at some point of time, maybe gone through it. So,
If
how
if
to
I
deal with that pressure?
if I told you that I had no pressure at all, I would be lying right through my teeth. So I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to be very honest. Yes, I did face a lot of pressure because See, the background that I come from is, I grew up in a small family and a land far away from anything that had to do with ministry. And because I had no understanding of, what ministry is or what it is to serve God, I had nothing like that, no exposure to anything like that. But as soon as I got married to Binu, and if for those who know, like his mom and dad, they are pioneers of this ministry. They are like legends. The ministry that they have created, what they have established, the churches. He's an, his father's an apostle, his mom is she's such a powerful ministry in deliverance, and then the wider family, like the sisters, the sister-in-law, everybody is involved in ministry, uncles, aunties, and it actually comes from even generations before that. If for those who know PV Tomi, he's his songs are sung in every church in Kerala. His songs are sung in weddings, and it's still living on. So such a great heritage that has been passed on
Yeah.
into their family. And me, such a tiny thing, and when I come into their family and they're like up here and I'm like way down at the bottom, and I'm thinking, how am I ever going to, get to that level, or how am I ever going to match that, or how can I ever live up to their expectations? And I just felt so unimportant, so insignificant. And then while you're in Kerala, people, and in our churches especially, like people you would start to say, your mother-in-law is like this, and she's so powerful, and you also have to be like that. I'm like, oh my goodness. Thank you. Yeah, I will try. But and the other thing that surprised me was that even women, like they were given such acceptance because she set a really high standard that way, and there was such an openness for women to minister in Kerala because of that, because of the way that she paved for those who are following her. But I took time. I took time, and I had to understand that this cannot happen overnight, and then I couldn't yield to the pressures of the people that they were putting around me. I had to wait. I couldn't rush into anything. And my husband always supported me. He never pushed me into anything. He always told me, you take your time. When you're ready, you will be ready. You will know it. And there was fear, there was stress, of course, because of all this pressure. Will I ever say the right things? Will I do it right? People are watching me. And I just, over a period of time, I understood that this is really not about me, because the whole time I was making it about me. Am I going to do it right, or am I going to say this right, or am I going to preach right, or then I had to understand that, look, this is really not about me. It's about God. It's about who he is, and then I'm realizing it more and more. And even now, it never leaves me. I just have to keep reminding myself that, look, I'm not here for me, but I'm here for him. And it's not about my qualification. It's not about what I do or who I am, but it's about his calling, not my qualification, but his calling. He's called me to do something, and he's called me to serve him. All I have to do is be available. All I have to do is be obedient to whatever he has, to tell me. And like you said, we're moms and we're wives, we're daughters, and we cannot compromise on that. We have these roles, we are called, we have to do all these things. These are our responsibilities. But I cannot
Yes.
stop being a mom just to minister if I have to minister. I cannot stop being a wife if I'm called to minister. I have to be all these things, and I have to minister, and I have to learn to just be myself and not be someone else. I could not copy someone else. I had to be who I am and who God created me to be. And because I would be fooling myself and the others, and the other thing I realized was most of the pressure I was putting it on myself. I was responsible for that because I just had to control that. Like, I just had to realize that, look, I don't need to be under all this pressure, but that there is a time for things to happen. And in God's time, all those things, all the things that he had for me, it's happening, and I believe even in future, there's, God has got great things in store. So I don't really have to worry about it. earlier I was anxious, earlier I was under pressure, but I had to learn it the hard way. I had to tell myself, look, I can't beat myself up. I just have to
Mm-hmm.
leave it into God's hands and do whatever He tells me to.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So I know there are like, especially new wives and new moms, even if the family is not a ministerial family, maybe they are into business or in whichever field God has called them for. There is always this thing, because I come from a non-believer background. So this
Mm,
pressure used to always be on me that, okay, if I act this way, they are going to raise a finger on my belief in the Lord and everything. So there's always this pressure sometimes hanging on our heads, that as a
mm,
family, when people look at me, they should not, feel that I am misrepresenting the Lord in any way. So
yeah,
that was really liberating when you said it's not about me. It's
yeah,
all about God. So God will take care of all of that. We
yeah.
don't
It
have to
is.
be under the pressure constantly and
No,
trust
no,
the Lord with that.
and plus, like you said, the pastors' wives, because I've heard that a lot too. It is the pastors more than the pastor themselves. Like the pastors' wives have a huge responsibility in going along with the pastor as well, supporting them, getting behind them, being, making sure that everything is running smoothly. So there is that huge responsibility. But I'd say that, we just need to learn to give it into God's hands and make the best out of whatever opportunity comes. Sometimes it's not easy to handle, but being anxious or feeling the pressure really doesn't add any value to our family, neither to the person that we have to show God's love to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
that's powerful. So let's not be anxious. I know many of us young wives and young moms, we go through it, but that's really helpful. Okay. So
yeah.
another thing I wanted to pick up was that was so memorable when we came to your home. I remember your daughter, the younger daughter, she came up to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember, going to her room just to, make like Levi had to change clothes, and I went to her room. I used her
Yep.
space, and she was so welcoming. And then she asked my name, and she asked Pinny's name, and then she asked the baby's name. And then before we were leaving, she brought this card for all three of us with our names written
Yeah.
on it. That
Yeah.
spoke volumes to me as a mother.
Mm,
And I
mm,
felt, oh my goodness, because that was just the second time that we had come to your home.
mm-hmm,
And she was so, that gesture itself, I don't think I can ever forget that. So, how important it is for us as mothers, or how can we rather do it to, bring up our children to love and honor people in that way?
mm,
And how did, how were you able to give her that quality to love people, to express that thing to her? How were you
mm.
able to teach her to do
You
that?
know, Hannah is, um, I think she's just been born that way. She has this real gift, and she has such a soft heart towards people. She's very
Mm-hmm.
compassionate, more than I can
Mm-hmm.
ever be. I think she's
Mm-hmm.
always sensitive that way to, what other people are going through and how she can make them feel better. And so that's one of the ways that she expresses. She makes cards or she
Mm-hmm.
does something that she can,
Mm-hmm.
just to make someone smile.
Yeah.
Um, but I think we are really high on the values that we try and teach our children because situations will always arise, circumstances will always come where they may not make the right decisions in life. But
Mm-hmm.
by instilling those values in them right from the time they're really young is so
Mm-hmm.
important. We believe Binu and I,
Mm-hmm.
we try and teach them to honor one another, respect
Mm-hmm.
your younger ones, even not just the older
Mm-hmm.
ones. And honor is really high on one of our values because in church,
Mm-hmm.
in our family, in ministry, in our team culture, we always impose honor. We tell people, give honor because not just because they're due, not just because they deserve it, because we
Mm-hmm.
say respect, you have to earn respect. I always tell my
Yeah.
children, like, you have to earn your respect. But honor is a bit different. Honor is like, you don't have to earn it. You just have to give. You just
Mm-hmm.
give honor. whether they're young, they're old. Age is not a factor. I have to tell my older daughter to honor my younger son. Just because he's younger than you, that doesn't mean that you can treat him however you want. You still have to honor him. So it's so important to teach values to our children when they are at a young age, so that even when they're older, that they will be able to remember that, and through different instances, we try and correct them. Of course, nobody's perfect, and there's so many, there's always quarrels, and they make mistakes, but through those mistakes, correcting them by telling them, not just because what was said was wrong or what was done was wrong, but why is it wrong? You're not supposed to disrespect, or you're not supposed to disobey, or why you have to do things with excellence. You can do things which is good, which is not so good, but doing it with an excellence. So just different things. And you listen well. Don't listen for the sake of listen. So just different things like that, where we try to instill values upon our kids, and then also trying to model it out for them, trying to be, because actions speak louder than words, isn't it? So it's not just about what we tell them, but it's about how we role play that to them, because they watch us. They watch us much more than we, can even think. So they are constantly watching the way we behave with ourselves and with our friends, or with, other people. So we need to model that out to them. And, our kids don't really have a lot of Christian friends where they are here. But because with the help of our family, uncles, aunties, their cousins, they all contribute towards their spiritual development, and developing values in their lives. So all these things, I think, will really help our kids, when they are growing up. Yeah.
Yeah, so I also wanted to ask you, because you have like a teenage daughter as well.
Yeah.
So
Oh my
like
God.
I have heard people talk about how hard it is to bring up teenagers and how difficult it can get at times. So just like you were saying about talking
Yeah.
to the children and instilling values to them, I believe it was not easy. I don't think it would have been that easy to make them sit and understand what we are trying to convey. So what would
Yeah.
you say to the people who struggle to convey things to their children, where their children are not willing to listen? What
Yeah.
should like, not me, I have like a small baby right now, but the people who have teenagers and
Yeah.
they are struggling to communicate with their children, how can they lead them? What should they do?
Yeah, it's a journey really, and it's not some. I think there's no particular formula like that which would work in every house or in every family. I think the dynamics are different in different homes. So and even the individual, even the child goes through certain things. There may be some trauma maybe that they are going through, and different stages in life, hormonal imbalances, all these things play a huge role in the way they respond to certain situations. So there was a period, where my daughter was behaving very differently, and it was hard for me to try to adjust or to deal with that, because both of us have a lot of similar, characteristics in our behavior. So two, they say opposites attract. So both of us are very similar. So we are kind of far, far apart that way. So it's very hard to track. But for those, even for those who have differences, I think we can definitely make it work. There's no, it's not impossible. But going through the journey that they are going through, and we as parents having to stoop a little bit lower to their level, will really help. Listening to them, it helps a huge amount, I'm telling you, because they, at this stage, they feel like, we don't understand them, because their thinking has changed, their actions have changed, and now so we don't really approve of everything, but and so then they think that, oh, you never understand what I'm going through. But that's not the truth, it's about how we respond to that. So our responses really matter. How we handle those situations, we have to be really wise and be more calm, and really sense. It's, you know, it's a matter of sensing as well, sensing what they're going through, what is going on in their minds. Some of them may not be very vocal about it. Some of them keep things in their heart. So all
Yeah.
those things, you know, it's definitely going to take time, and it took time for my daughter as well to come out of that stage. You know, she came out of it. When she came out, it was a journey, but she came out. And I'm sure most children do come out of that, of what they go through at, you know, that point of their life, and those teenage years where there's some of them are rebelling, some of them just don't want to listen to what we have to say. But being patient, as parents, being patient and really trying to understand what they're going through, and listening to them and supporting them in
Yes.
whatever way we can would really help, you know, our kids.
Yes.
And talking to them, you know, talking to them openly will also help a
Yeah.
lot, because sometimes, you know, when we're growing up in our Indian culture, in our Indian standards, we tend to stay shut about certain things. We think, oh, this is, you know, this is not something that you can talk about with your kids. But really, when you come to an open, if you come to a place where you can be open to your child, I think they will also start to open up and talk to us. And that is the journey that we are also on right now, because this is something that I'm trying to practice more and more. I haven't reached there yet, but we're on that journey, and I think that's made a big difference in our
Yeah.
relationship. You know?
Yeah. I just remember a few days back God teaching me something very similar to what you're sharing about trying to know why our children act in a certain way. Like as parents, it's so easy for us to see them behave in a certain way and just react and just say, stop doing that, it's not good. Instead of getting to the root of it, why they are behaving that way, what is it that's troubling them.
Yeah.
So that's so helpful. Even the point that you spoke about listening to them, so I have had friends that somewhere feel, because coming from a ministerial family where their parents are pastors or leaders, they somewhere feel left out because they
Yeah.
feel that my parents would listen to the church believers and members more than they would listen to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then there would be that sense of rejection, that abandonment sometimes, that unknowingly it will creep into them. So it's so important as parents to
So
give
true.
time to our children and listen to them. And now in this quarantine time,
It
we have
is.
nothing else to do but to actually
No excuse.
look at them. No
No
excuse at
excuses
all.
at all.
Yes, yes. So
No,
I'm
no. We have
also
all the
believing,
time in
and
the
I am.
world.
Yes. Now they can't say that you, because you were busy in the meeting, you cannot understand what I'm going through. So we
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
just sit and talk to them. Yes.
That's
So
it.
also,
That's
Chechi,
it.
if you could talk a little bit, I know that these things we didn't discuss before, but I believe God is
Yeah.
leading us in this direction.
Sure.
I wanted you to talk about two things. One thing, how far do you feel it is important for us as parents to be vulnerable to our children about, our own failures? And somewhere as parents, we may feel that if I reveal this weakness of mine to my child will not honor me, or my child will not respect me in this area. So, how important do you feel it is for us to, be vulnerable to our
Yeah.
children and to let them know that we have also gone through this? And how
Yeah.
important it is to be open to them, especially kids of this age, this modern world that we are living in. We cannot set up a standard and expect them to reach us.
Yeah.
And just like you were
True.
saying, going down to their level. So,
Yeah.
how can we do that, and how important it is in this
Yeah,
time?
I think it is so, so important for us to have that kind of an openness with our kids, you know. We're human just as human as they are. And they think because they're at an age, they are at a vulnerable age right now, you know. So because there's
Yeah.
so much of exposure that is there now that we never had in our, time. So they are very vulnerable, and at the same time, I think it is good and it is healthy for us as parents to be able to to communicate that with our kids, that, look, I'm just as vulnerable as you are, and we have failed so many times, but that does not make us failures, and we need to tell our children that as well. You may not succeed in everything in life. Yes, this is our hope, this is our desire, we want you to succeed at everything, but you may not, and that's okay. And that's okay, but you can't see yourself as a failure. If we have failed, pick ourselves up and keep moving forward, and it's so important for us to share our stories with them as well, because as we share them, then they'll be like, oh, yeah, they've been through similar situations like us, or they may understand us after all,
Yeah.
but if we never
Mhm.
do that, they would never be able to understand us. They would never know why we put certain boundaries, or why we have certain limitations, or why we are open about certain things, because that understanding, they start seeking elsewhere. They seek the things in the wrong places. Then they seek
Mhm.
it among their friends, who could fill their minds with filthy things, which
Yeah.
may not be
Yeah.
right. So where are they going to go if they need the right kind of understanding? Who would they go to? They should always be able to come back to us. They should always
Yeah.
know that their parents are there because they have wisdom, or they will be able to help them and advise them to walk in the right paths, because their friends or the others are probably not going to be there always for them. But
Yeah.
if we're there to help, we're there to guide them, we're there to counsel them, help them to walk in the right paths, because we have experiences and we've been through certain situations, and that could be some of the best advice that the children would ever get. So I think it is important for us to be able to open up to that, even though sometimes it is hard as a parent, but we need to let our guard down and know that, look,
Yeah.
this is no one else, this is your own family, this is your own blood, this is your child, and you're doing it for your own child, so don't worry about anything else.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So also about having children at home that do not want to. I just had this thought in my mind. There are families, there are moms especially who struggle with making their children follow them spiritually, like reading the Bible, making reading the Bible and going to church a practice that they would like. And I've across families, across parents that in this modern age, I think somewhere as parents, we have in the, they say you make friends with your children. So somewhere
Mm.
it's a very thin line, becoming a friend and then also
Yeah.
parenting. But I've seen actually moms and dads, when their children said, I don't want to come to church, so they give them the liberty. Okay, fine, you don't come, we will be going and
Mm.
we'll come back in a few hours.
Mm.
But coming from a family that loves God, that serves God, we want our children also to follow, the footsteps of Jesus, to love the Father,
Yeah.
to read the Word. And what if
Yeah.
our children say, Mom, it's boring. I don't want to read the Bible. I don't want to come to church. I don't find anything over there that,
Yeah.
suits my interest.
Yeah.
So, how do we as parents, as moms especially, because
Yeah.
we are mostly at home with our children, how can we lead them to love God? How can
Yeah.
we help them in this
Yeah.
area?
Yeah, just what you said, like, this is boring, or, I have nothing to do there. These are things that I've said myself when I was much younger. So there's obviously, so many more kids who definitely go through that. And I think it's like you said, there's that fine line between friendship and being a parent. You want to be a friend, and you want to be like that, so that you can gain that acceptance of, oh, she's treating me like a
Yeah.
friend. Now I can tell her whatever I
And the
want. So,
trust.
yeah,
Yeah.
the trust factor.
Yeah.
Okay, all
Mm.
that. That is. I think that's such a good question. And but there are instances when, I myself actually I've said this. I talk to her and I tell her, Abigail, just see me as your friend, and just be open with me. Tell me about some of the boys in your class, or just different things that they actually feel that they are uncomfortable to open up with. So, but at the same time, there are certain instances where they talk to us in such a way that they talk to their friends. And I'm like, don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to me like you talk to your friends. you know so, but there has to be like a fine balance between that. We have never compromised on missing a Sunday for our kids. Like there are some events that happen in school, some programs or sports days or something special that comes up on a Sunday. and we have to tell our kids, I'm sorry, we just can't let you go because we can't compromise on a service.
Yeah.
This is something that we have dedicated for God. Even for
Mhm.
family prayer time, a time that we have set apart for God. I think we just have to remain true to that and not
Mhm.
compromise with it. And so with children of different ages, it's really all about your creativity. We have to be innovative with what we can do to keep their interest level high. So
Yeah.
with my older daughter, so sometimes even during the family prayer time, or at other times, we have to do something that
Mm.
will interest her. So how do we
Mm.
keep her attention on that, or how can we, revive something inside of her where she can get closer to God? So we do something like a trivia. My husband and
Mm.
I, we do like a Bible trivia sometimes, and so they
Okay.
learn at the same time. She's very interested to be able to be the first one to answer, and
Yeah.
and then with the little ones, we try to do something more picture based. Because
Mm.
they are more visual. All these children are so
Mm.
visual these days, and so
Yeah.
we try and do something with pictures or colorings, or and just different ways where we can try and find that they are more attentive and they can give us, their attention to this, because it has to be also a limited time, because their attention span doesn't go for too long.
Yeah.
So we have to keep, there are times where they can lose that interest, they can lose that attention, but we have to keep reviving that, we have to keep bringing it alive to them,
Yeah.
and we have to find innovative ways where we can do that,
Mhm.
because I remember when I was growing up, even though I didn't go to a spirit-filled church, my parents made sure that we would have a family prayer time every day, and it would be every day at the same time, and there
Mhm.
was no compromising with that. And so, because I grew
Mhm.
up with that discipline, even now I understand the importance of it, even though it was a different
Mhm.
method then. I
Yes.
know and I understand the significance of that, of having to do
Mhm.
that with the children these days, because now you live in a world where they are surrounded by unbelievers. And
Mhm.
how do you fight that? How do because there's so many voices from the
Mhm.
world, but for
Mhm.
you to remove all those cluttered voices, how do you
Mhm.
stay, how do you remain in the word, how do you
Mhm.
remain in the spirit? You have to be, as parents, we have a responsibility to do that. We have to keep
Mhm.
them involved some way or the other. So it's a good thing that they go to church, because in church they're serving at different capacities. Even though
Yeah.
it's my daughter is 10 years old, she's serving in a capacity that she can. She's doing
Mhm.
something to dedicate or to serve the church. My 14-year-old
Yeah.
girl, she's also doing something, she's serving as a volunteer.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
they have to understand the importance of that, of being close to God, of
Mhm.
honoring God, of obeying his commandments and walking with the Lord. And
Mhm.
we as parents just have to find different innovative ways and means to help them get there, so
Mhm.
that they don't
Yeah.
lose that freshness,
Mhm.
and like, because the word even says renew your mind every day. So this is what
Yeah.
happens in our mind. We
Mhm.
can waver, and we may not always be steady, but
Mhm.
up to a certain age, we as parents have that responsibility to help them get there, in that
Yeah.
in that journey.
I really love the point which you made about, getting creative with our children.
Mm.
That definitely takes time. We have to
Yeah.
invest time with our children. And
Yeah.
I remember I had my conversation with Sneha, and we were talking about declaring the word over our children, about the spiritual aspect of it. And she made a point and she said, I cannot, expect things to change just by declaring the word and not by living it out,
Right.
by doing something in that direction. And so many moms
So
out
true.
there, somewhere they feel that just praying for their children is enough. They are
Mm.
they surround themselves with so much prayer and intercession and the word, which is also important, but they
Yeah.
forget to give time to their children,
Yeah.
listen to them, and be empathetic even to their children,
Hmm.
to have a listening ear. So that's really powerful.
Yeah.
I'm taking all these points down.
Like, even with my 4-year-old son, like, I think, how can I ever get him to pay attention to something, because he's all over the place and there's so much of energy inside of
Yeah,
him.
I
How
remember.
do you get them, you know how do you get them to just sit still and listen? So because there's, like I said, they're so visual these days, and so now you have different apps coming up on your phones or your
Yeah.
iPads or devices. Like, well,
Mm-hmm.
use the apps for something good. So I've downloaded like a Bible app for the kids, and then I sometimes I show him, they have stories on it. So Noah or Jonah or Moses, or different characters. So they, when they see these stories, they tend to remember them more than how much we say. So it may
Yeah.
be just a short time, 10 minute or 15 minute, but that you're sowing a seed. You're sowing a seed in a way that it impacts him in his own way, not in my way. Now, I would probably never sit and watch a cartoon app, but he would, right? So we
Yeah.
just have to, work our mind around that and try and figure out what works best for each child, because they're so unique. Each child is so
Yeah.
different from the other.
Yes. So also let's just shift our conversation to from being a mom now to also being a
Okay.
wife, married to a powerful man of God who God has called with a big vision and a big calling. So also, Chechi, just in case if we have the this chat getting cut because we have a time limit on Instagram, I'm going to connect you again
Okay.
so we could do a part
Okay.
two. So I don't want it to end abruptly. It has ended before,
Okay.
so I'm just telling you beforehand.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
so I remember
Sure.
you told me about you and Pastor Binu starting a business initiative recently. So,
Yeah.
know from you, like in a time, especially in a country like India, where women, even today, women are not given that much, of the platform in a way, they're not given an open place to minister. Many people think that women, their place is in in the house, and they have bounced some roles on them, and they feel this is what a woman is called,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you have been blessed with a family and with a husband that how do you address thing to the women out there who feel that how can I ever step out and do something like this, what if my husband doesn't support me, again this is not something that we discussed before, but I think you could help some women out there who feel that okay, I cannot do this without my husband's support. How can I get my husband on my side, help him see my
Yeah.
gifting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the women who feel that way, who feel like they have this deep desire to do something on their own, have a yearning to start something that will make them feel more confident. I think it's a huge step for them to make, and it and there's a lot of factors that are involved when you make a decision like that. I just want to tell women who do think like that, don't think that that it is impossible. It
Yeah.
is not impossible to start something, or if you want to do a business, if it is a desire that you have, if it is something that God has led you to do, I don't think that you should put it away, because as Christians and as as a leader or maybe as a pastor, you're in a role like that. Sometimes we feel like, because of the voices that we have heard earlier, people say that, oh, you can't be in business, business is a sin, or it's wrong for you to be doing that. You're called to minister, you're called to be serving the church, you're not called to do
Yeah.
anything else. But whoever said so? God never said that. He never said that business is a sin.
Yeah.
He's actually pro prosperity. He loves his children to be blessed and prosperous and having an abundance, because that's what our God is. Our God is plentiful. Our God is
Yeah.
a God of abundance. So He definitely wants to bless us with, with everything, with wealth and whatever. You name it, He's He's there to provide. So I think
Yeah.
it's that mindset that is there in a lot of women that needs to shift, that they need to accept that, look, this is not a sin, this is not wrong for me to do it. And if they are able to have an open conversation about that with their husbands or their partners or whoever's around them, their family who's supporting them, I think it's important for them to make them understand that. Because but first, the women themselves have to understand it. They have to know that, look, this is something that I can do. Yes, it involves we also have to know that it involves hard work, because as a leader or as a pastor of a church, and leading, managing the house, a home,
Yeah.
church, and business, it's a huge responsibility, and God has to grace us for that. It's not
Yeah.
something that I think we can do in our own ability, but we have to have a
Yeah.
supernatural strength. We have to have a supernatural power behind this, because otherwise it's so hard. It's such a big challenge for us. And it is important for those who are close to the women to be standing alongside them and supporting them to do that. Why wouldn't God want to bless you? Why wouldn't God want to prosper you if you have everything that it takes? Why
Yeah.
not? So I think it's a question that we need to ask ourselves. Why, what is stopping me? Is it my own fears? Is it my own mindset? Is it something that I need to shift in my mind, in my heart? What is it? Is it somebody who's standing in the way? Am I standing in the way? So most of the time it could be ourselves that's the biggest obstacle in taking a step of faith, because this requires a huge step of faith, you know and because there are risk factors in it. We trained so many people in business, but very few people have actually come forward and with that taking that step of faith to start something of their own, because then they realize what is involved in starting a business. So it's not impossible. That's what I would want to tell them.
Yeah.
It is something that can be doable, but all we have to do is have confidence and have faith in God. And if there is something that is in our minds telling us that this is not, my society will not accept it, or the people around me, my community will not accept it, but really, if this is but if this is something that the Spirit is leading you to do, because even in church, we someone said that church is a meeting place which is a training place for the marketplace. So we are all
Wow.
trained. We are all trained that way. It's not something that just you go and do, out of the spur of the moment or without any planning. It is a training place. We're all trained for that, to be in the marketplace, to reach out to people, to be a blessing to people. Who
Yeah.
needs you? Jesus was always there for the people of the community, isn't it? He gave in whatever way
Yes.
he could. So I think it's that stigma. There's a stigma that people are holding on to, but we need to break that
Yes.
and actually step out in faith.
Yeah. I even remember some time back having a chat with one of the ladies I know about the Proverbs 31 woman, like who is the standard for all the women of God.
Yeah.
But then so many of us focus more on how she's such a good mother and such a good wife, and she's so hardworking. Many of us, in a way, overlook the fact that she's a businesswoman.
Yeah.
She's a woman in trade. She
Absolutely
loves to
right.
do that. She's
Yeah.
so skilled and she's so gifted. And somewhere, before I was coming online with you, Chechi, I was praying and I felt this I had this thought to talk to you about it. Like many of us as women, when we go through difficult situations financially in our home, we look up to our husbands and we think that it is only the man's job and it's only the man's role to take care of the family financially.
Yeah.
And like we get so overwhelmed when in this modern age people think the women should only cook and all, and we come to our defense and we say no, women can do much more than that. But when it
Yeah.
comes to the role of a husband, we bind them in this frame that okay, if it has to be providing for the house, it only has to be the man. So many women don't understand, or they don't look at their husbands as somebody who they could support,
Yeah.
stand with them. And even this concept in the West, it's very common these days of a stay-home dad, and people are opening to that. But in India, like we're far from it right now
Yeah.
because we are
Yeah.
bound. The provision has to come only from the men. But the
Yeah.
Bible says that
Yeah.
the woman in the Proverbs 31 chapter we read about, she provides for her family. She
That's
provides for
right.
her husband, for her children. And
Yeah.
as a young wife, I want to know from you how important it is for us to, understand that we can be providers too. God has called us
Yeah.
In the Bible, it's there. He has called us and he gives us the ability to support our husband, not in a way to overtake them,
Mm-hmm.
but to stand with them, to
Mm.
support them.
Mm.
So, how important it
Yeah.
is for us to change our framework, in the way we think.
I think it's really important for us to do that, for us to be for a woman and her husband to be able to complement one another, because God has put a man and a woman together for a purpose, and it's not just for a physical purpose. It's to be a moral help. It's to be standing with one another, supporting one another, being there for each other, nourishing and
Yeah.
caring for one another. So as the Bible also says, husbands, love your wives and women submit to them. So it's not, when husbands love their wives, there is, of course, there has to be a love and a nourishing and a care that comes from the husband. And women submitting to them does not mean that, okay, I'm right here and you're up there. That is not what it means. But it's about actually helping them, and it's actually taking care of the whole family, taking care of his needs, going along with him with everything that he is doing. So it is so vital for a woman to be supportive and helping her husband throughout
Yeah.
the journey of their lives together. And at the same time, it's not impossible. I think the husband also can understand that if he is an understanding person, and if he is in the Lord, he will surely understand that it is not just his responsibility, but there
Yeah.
women are also gifted. And if you look at the world today, women are so high in their careers. The top CEOs of so many secular companies are women, because they've come such a long way, even though in some places they're not treated equally as men, but they still have capabilities, they still have potential, high potential, with they could reach so much higher. And it's about an openness that has to come in their hearts, where men can also understand that my wife is capable of this, and I have to be willing to let her go, or I have to be I have to understand that she is capable of this. But the more I bind that, or the more I keep that covered or hide that, the more harm it brings, or just the lesser blessing. It's not that God cannot bless, God will definitely bless, but that does so much to a woman, because her morale is down.
Yeah.
She feels like she's insignificant, she's incapable of doing anything. They feel like the confidence, their self-image, everything is affected by that. So if there are women who feel that they are called to something much higher, and to be able to be out there in the marketplace, providing for their families, I think that will do really good, as long as the husband and the wife, they are in good understanding with each other, and how this would bless their family and keep their family and provide for their family, nurture their kids, and that things are going to turn out and much more positively for them. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that's so important, because I remember, somebody telling me that it's our walk with God is so much also about unlearning things,
Oh yeah,
the things that we have
definitely.
learned in the past. And I have,
Definitely.
before I got married, I always used to envision myself as a woman strongly supporting my husband in ministry, always being up there for him in ministry, in ministry.
Yeah.
But when it came to taking care of the house and providing financially, standing with him, somewhere as a wife, initially I did struggle. That's my
Mm.
personal
Mm.
confession. And I know that it's hard for us people, like we grow up somewhere. All right, friends, this is part two of my conversation with Pastor Deena, with Chechi Deena, and I hope you guys are getting blessed, because I am getting so blessed. I'm learning so many things. So I'm going to connect Chechi again, and yes.